Hey all, here is a replay version of the most recent live stream Q&A on all things Social Security that occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is with all the little silences carved out of it. So I hope it's an easier listen for those who are doing the replay versus being there live. And we'd love to see you live. So feel free to pop in. Bye-bye now. You want a cracker? Hey everybody, how are you? Let me know you can hear me, that I did everything okay. Let me double check. Pretty sure my sound is good. So far seems so good. I see Kevin Johnson in the house, first one. And hi, Kevin. Baxter Taylor's in the house. Hi, Baxter. Okay, so hope you're all doing okay. It's been super, super hot. Yeah, very hot here also. Shiloh, exit. Hi, Kubi. Nice to see you. Glad to know it's very clear. Trustin, hey there. I don't know that. Did we meet Trustin? I think maybe we did. Your picture looks familiar, but of course that could be many of us good old patriots, right? Okay, where are we at? I see a question here from Baxter. So let's just hit on that first. If it gets a little slow until people pop in, I'll just share with you what a recent video I just did, just to keep everyone apprised of the legislation that's, out there as bills, not yet passed, of course, and give you my little take on that. But okay, so Baxter says, how much weight does a neuropsych eval have on an SSDI claim? Well, Baxter, it will, in my opinion, first of all, neuropsych is a high specialty, so that's positive, because that's going to be a higher credential than, probably the psychiatrist or the therapist or the psychologist, I'm thinking, that does your CE if they give you a CE. However, it is known that if you went to a neuropsych and it was I'm paying you for the results to help me show that I'm disabled, there's a risk that runs a little bit of concerns for conflicted interests, like you're the person they're paying. You're the person paying them for a particular result. So that depends there. And then the biggest thing I'd say is his exam findings consistent with your treating medical records already? Follow? So like if he's saying something that sounds really good, but your own treating records conflict with that or never ever mention such a thing, and it's hugely important, I think it's going to detract from the weight that's going to be given to his opinion. His or her opinion. So, it's probably not a bad idea if you're going to do something like that, and you're obviously paying them, right? It could be that it's just part of your insurance and you were referred to a specialist, perhaps. That's nice because then you don't have to pay privately or separately. Make sure they have reviewed all of your mental health, or neuropsych can involve some other things too, but generally your mental health treating paperwork that you've had, hopefully you've had, talk therapy, other kind of therapy, medications for years or whatever it's been, even if it's just a year. And at least then they're going to know what the people that know you the best are saying. Now, of course, if your treating provider is one of those slackers that don't include a lot of things and leave a lot out, then that's not going to really help. But, you just do as much as you can. I think it's probably generally going to be better than not doing it, potentially. Or I should say, it usually isn't going to hurt you unless that neuropsych says things that are better than what your treating provider said, or better than what you've claimed, or better, guys, of what level of limitations you have mentally you need to win your case. So a little separate diverge here, but you always want to know what you have to prove, mental, physical, or both, to get you to where the law says you're disabled. It's really common, probably almost universal, for claimants to just speak broadly about, I can't work because of my mental problems. I can't work because I can't stand long. Very vague and broad, and that's not really going to work. Between the treatment and the specificity, you almost have to, I always say, thread the needle. It's almost an annoying phrase even to me, so it's probably really annoying to you guys. But find out where the end goal is under the law, and you make sure you get through there instead of getting pushed over here, like a maze almost. Okay. And it's not to say that the law, once you know the law, it's not that confusing, but learning it takes a while. So, because it's a combination of legal and medical and subjective, actually. Okay. I hope that helped, Baxter. Baxter says, does a long work history help with SSDI claim? I don't think it hurts. I think Jonathan and I have talked about this. Like, it's for the legal things, it's the last 5 years, right? And not being SGA now or since your claimed alleged onset date. So a couple different periods there that can be different from one another. But you can't help but think that when, particularly when an ALJ, you want another piece, sees that I don't know, let's say you've been a heavy equipment operator for 35 years, or a nurse in an ER for 35 years, or a teacher, or, or a cashier, or a retail associate or a mailman. You can't help, I don't think, the human aspect is to look and say, that person was a dedicated worker, particularly in the field. And particularly if that person also kind of expresses that last thing I ever thought I'd have to do is, be on disability. I'd be working right now. I liked my job. I did it for 30 years. I would have quit. Because think about it. Most people will quit their profession or their chosen career if they despise it, right? So most people, I'm sorry, I'm rolling. That's why you see me fidgeting. These wheels are not too good. So I think, yeah, it could be a long history with one kind of work. One employer is also kind of, I think, not hurtful. But even for people, and in this day and age, it's not as common like it used to be. I, for one, never stayed long with an employer, a few years here and there. But the work history, I think, does tell a story. It's not going to hit any of the legal marks, that the check boxes for the, particularly for the initial and reconsideration people that I don't believe have a huge amount of discretion at their disposal. But an ALJ, it's not, how can it hurt for him to know that you have always been a dedicated worker and you clearly took pride in your work? People with sketchier, particularly if there's not like a history of really bad medical problems throughout, which makes some people justifiably sketchy in their work history, they're not going to have that benefit. It's not to say they're going to be hurt by that, though. I just think it's like a extra credit. I just feel like it can affect the mindset of the human behind the decision, which is, a judge. At least he won't have something in the back of his head to the contrary, right? And there's not a bad chance that judge has also been in his field or her field for a long time too, and understands the dedication that requires. And, when people are proud of their work, even though, no work environment is perfect, that causes them to stay longer because they have a work ethic and all that business. So, and again, this is not to put down job hoppers. Like I said, before starting my own practice a few decades ago, I didn't stay long. I was never quite jiving, you know what I mean? So just saying. Creepy Dreams, thank you, telling me that he could hear me. Tristan, KJ's in the house. You're so funny, KJ. I'm not even going to repeat that, pal. You're so funny. Brad Calvert. Brad, I don't think we've met, have we? Let's pop you in here. Nice to meet you. Goodness. Did you finish that? She's excited to be here. Hasn't been in here the last few days. I know. But I've not actually been working in here. I've been working elsewhere. And I did have her with me a little bit. As you know, I'm dealing with a fan. No AC in this room. And it's not bad right now, actually, even though it's despicably hot outside. And we have people paving our front road. But I feel bad for those guys. And I say guys because I didn't see any chicks out there, okay? Don't take offense, ladies. I have air conditioning 6 or 7 feet from me, So I'm leaving the door open. If the dogs get crazy, I'll just have to probably close it for a little bit. So Brad says, question. I am 15 months away from FRA. Guys, FRA is full retirement age. Okay, so you're getting there, Brad. I live in Eastern Europe and have been in Eastern Europe for 10 years. Not had a CDR since 2016. Does SSA do CDRs on out-of-country recipients? Yes, it does, but I do not foresee it. I think that would be exceedingly unlikely, particularly with the current administration. And why is that? Because they're all about not wasting money. So let's say they did a CDR and they find out that, it looks like Brad in the last year has really improved and he could probably go out there and do an easy, unskilled, nothing where you had to remember your skills from a prior job. In theory, you'd not be disabled anymore, but the amount of time, labor, and expense of proving that, even let's say it was 12 months ago, you were no longer disabled. Obviously, that's unrealistic, but I'm just giving you the hypothetical. They spend all that money developing that. So that's probably, I don't know. Did I hear something about 10 to 15,000? I'm not sure. And they don't know if they're going to prevail or not, because when they start it, they don't even know. What is the benefit? Well, probably nothing. It's probably a loss, because let's say they prove you're disabled and they stop your benefits now. You're just going to collect full retirement. And you might even protect, since you're 15 months away, maybe you would be collecting 15 months early for a little tiny ding in the amount. So what do they really gain? Not enough to make that something when there's CDRs to be done on younger people who, let's face it, so many people become temporarily disabled from working. We have a bad car accident, we're on double crutches, we break it, double hip replacement, whatever it is. It's those people who get disability and should, if they're disabled for more than a year, but they get better. And then it's time to get off and get back to, adult working again. So I don't think they're going to, buddy. He makes me close this door. Buddy, lay down. I don't want to spank your hiney, but I will. So I don't think they're not going to do that. Particularly this administration, who is very into they're better with numbers, I think, and realized that that would be a really unwise economic choice to make. Hold on one second, guys. I'm going to go forgive. Buddy, what did I say? So they're paving the road out front. Big pavers. It's a blessing because I live in a cul-de-sac and we are like, I always knew we shouldn't be one of the first people to be repaved by our HOA. And people would, gripe and groan all the other cul-de-sacs and stuff. And I would say, but we're on a cul-de-sac. They have to do the main roads first. And the money is not, we're paying for it. So I think it should be kind of slow and steady and do the main roads and and then the road outside of us that isn't, that we all have to go on, plus another road has to go on. So, call me objective, but I mean, that makes more sense to do those first with our limited funds, unless we want to see our high HOA dues go higher. And then some people don't think like that. They just want what they want. And then you say, well, are you willing to pay another, $100 a year for HOA? No, our HOA is high enough. Well, it's like money doesn't grow on trees, and those road workers are not going to come here for free. You know what I mean? Just to make your road nice for you without, getting paid. So it's just funny. But I was very pleased to see that they're doing our road. And I've been here 23 years, and I don't think it's been done in 23 years. And every year there's potholes, and they fill them. And then every winter, I'm in, Pennsylvania, and not the southern tip either. And those potholes come back because the things pop out with the weather and the ice and all that. And I was kind of psyched. I was kind of glad for the bumps when my kids were small, because people that would go speeding, even on a cul-de-sac, they do that. Guy living on the end to it, young kid. I worried for any of the little children living around. And when mine were little, I was just extremely anal. But so I didn't want a smooth road, because smooth roads encourage faster speeds. So I liked the big bumps, and I would just, meander my truck around them and all that. And now my kids are, 17, going to be 18 in a few weeks, and the other one's 19. So I don't have to worry about that. I do worry about the other kids, though, because now, we've had cycles of neighbors. We've been here the longest, for sure. And I worry about those little kids sometimes, because people still, it's a cul-de-sac. There's maybe 8 houses long. I mean, it's not that big, but we'll see. But I'm psyched more so because I'll be selling in a year. And don't you think people will be more up to pay more if they have a nice paved road to come down instead of like a potholey paved road? So I'm very mercenary about it. What? Did you finish that, or did you drop it? Because there's a dog right under when I bring the bird in here. The little dog comes in to catch what she drops. He's such a little blinker. Okay, moving on. Don, right? We met last week, didn't we? Just FYI, I was approved yesterday. Woo! It stayed in FQR for 1 month. That's a long time. I think that's a long time, but that's awesome. Waiting on letter and other info. Local office asked for additional time. Thanks for your videos. You are so welcome. I'm so happy to hear that. Doesn't that make all of our days? I mean, I know when you're still fighting the battle, I think you're glad for him, but you're like, why not me? I totally get that too. But having a little joy for somebody else, it'll come back by and large. Tristan says, thank goodness for SSI, diagnosed with schizophrenia at 16. So you have schizophrenia, Tristan, and you have SSI, right? Yeah, that is great. I wonder if you will, I don't know how old you are, but if you've gotten it proven before, latest out there now, before you're age 22, if that's when your alleged onset date is, that got you and your established onset date that got you the SSI, it's very possible. Keep all your records. I'd say order them every year. Keep treating, good, bad, and the ugly. Trust them, because in time, depending on your parentage and everything, if one of your parents retires, becomes disabled, hopefully not, or gosh forbid passes away, you could go from SSI to DAC, which is Social Security and not SSI. Because as you know, SSI is not Social Security at all. It's just the pure welfare paid by all your neighbor taxpayers. Whereas if you get DAC, it is insurance that your parent purchased, worked, paid the premiums, and purchased. So it's not the welfare program. It's the Social Security Disabled Adult Child Auxiliary Benefit. Just like minor children would get it, you would get it also, because even though you're not a minor, because you didn't really have the opportunity to even go out there and make a work record like the rest of them. And then separately, of course, if you did work very well-regulated part-time within your capacities with your disorder, without risk, putting that at high risk, you could also, without the DAC, go from SSI to your own Social Security disability account that you would have created by working part-time. Just if that's something you're interested in, you're going to want to know what those numbers are. Well, how much do I have to earn? And am I completely safe from SGA? And yes, you can do it and be completely safe from SGA. It's very different numbers, thankfully. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, and I'm glad you have it. It's such an important program, for sure. And that was something I was going to add, guys. If we didn't have some questions in here, let me just slip it in. There's going to be a video coming out in a couple days. Just a standalone, the 12 o'clock p.m. Might even be Saturday. I'm not sure. But there is a bill out there. There have been bills for as long as I have been practicing, and they've never passed. Doesn't matter who's in office. Doesn't matter, who the president is. Doesn't matter who controls Congress. So when they talk about it being a big deal about who controls it, almost isn't, because for some reason none of them really care about it, apparently. But the countable resources is a big deal. With SSI, you have to have 2,000 or less. I think it's 2,000 or less, or it's 199 or less. But 2,000 is the threshold. And once you hit whatever the threshold is or breach it, you are no longer eligible for SSI for that month. So you never want to be entering a month with more than, that amount in countable resources. That amount of 2,000 was set way before I even started practicing this, and I'm in my third decade. So imagine $2,000, what that was worth. I'm presuming it was the 80s, but I don't know the date. I could be wrong on that. Maybe it's earlier, maybe it's a little later, but it's long. It's long. And they never put in a COLA attachment to that. Like they do for Social Security disability benefits get a COLA, SSI benefits get a COLA. Why wouldn't the amount that you're allowed to retain for an emergency, for savings, for a cushion, why wouldn't that gravitate with the COLA? It just makes sense. So I always thought it was a little disingenuous of any of them up there talking about, sympathy and all this other, and so this bill has it going up to 10,000, which may even be higher than what inflation would have put it at, but that's fine, I think, because, or I explained in the video, it's like, I don't feel like our COLA actually reflects, our indices that they use don't really reflect the cost of living. Not that you can reflect cost of living for every single place in the country. I mean, Bel Air versus, Perry County, Pennsylvania, where I want to move to. Totally different, income levels, costs of homes, I'm going cheap. But it just seemed very disingenuous to always keep it at 2,000 for nearly, what are we talking? We're almost half a century. That is ludicrous. So I'm really happy to hear that is probably the big chunk in there. I haven't gotten to the videos on these, but there's a couple other bills up there. I do favor the one that we're just talking about now. There's some other ones where now they just want things that and I'll probably do a video on them, and some of what I say might tick some people off, but that's okay, because I think it's worth discussing. But trying to take away other threshold limits for SSI beneficiaries. But unfortunately, I feel that the more that they're going to do that, they're trying to equalize Social Security with welfare. They're trying to conflate it and make it so that y'all are on welfare. Not true. Social Security is an insurance benefit for workers who paid in, period, end of story. And they've been doing this subtly over the years. Using the acronyms was not helpful. Making them all sound the same was not helpful. Calling them all benefits and leaving it very generic, that ticks off a lot of people. Something for a different day, guys, but I do not think they should be suddenly making SSI beneficiaries have all the same or better than the people that actually paid for their own insurance, and were taxed, whereas the other ones didn't. So, and that's not a negative thing on SSI recipients at all. I think I think even they would agree, like that would be right, So, anywho, Don goes on to say that his win happened at Recon. See, and now that's a whole nother thing. There's some people, Jonathan and I were talking about this the other week when I was on his show. A lot of my colleagues just want to get rid of Recon. They want to go straight to the hearing weight. I love Recon. Probably two Recon wins just this week. If you work your case and you do the wise things, you increase your chance exponentially to win on Recon than you would otherwise. I think the overall rate is like 15%, only 15% who get denied on initial and appeal, that subset that were denied, that appeal on Recon will prevail on Recon. Okay, that's the average. So what is it for me? I don't know. I don't keep the stats because I don't think we're allowed to speak to them. But I will tell you this. I get very disappointed when I have a case that I think should have won on Recon. Like should have won and will win at ALJ and could have won. To me, it's almost, there are some cases that I know have to go to hearing. There are some cases that are just the kind of category that have to go to hearing. And there's other ones. And it is almost rare. I shouldn't say rare, but more often than not, I will get them on Recon because I'll be the nag, you guys know, but the Recon to me is invaluable so that people don't have to go all the way to hearing. And that could be, goodness knows, if that slows up like it did back in the teens, like 15, 16, 17, it got kind of corrected by 2019 when those hearings were taking 2 years from the time you appealed for the hearing. That's after you've gone through initial and Recon, which at present, since 2022 has been slow, maybe speeding up a little bit now, but still not acceptable. If you can, prevail earlier. God bless, right? William S. is in the house and says, Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you too, William. Dolphin's in the house. Hi, RD. RD's another big winner, right? Not so recent anymore. It's probably all sunk in, right, RD? Michael Holland's in the house. Michael says, if denied second time by the same ALJ, first hearing RFC was light, 53 years old, would it be best to call it quits and file again? No. Don't call it quits. And file again new 155, which will be in October of 2027. DLI is 2029. No, I wouldn't. And I'm not sure if there would be a benefit. Like if there is something weighing in that way, aside the fact that you're probably tired of doing it, which I totally understand. I would not throw it to the wind. What I think you're lacking is the evidence that you need to, remember I was saying, find out what all little criteria you have to meet to prove that you are disabled under the rules for 53. Or 54 next year, right? And then you go get that evidence. And, I don't know if you're pro se or if you have an attorney. I don't know if your attorney looks at it and says, this is what your case specifically could use. And of course, the findings of let's say it's a diagnostic, or let's say you had a diagnostics, but then you never treated for it. You don't have any conservative therapies to show that you actually cared about the diagnostic, that it bothered you, that it was uncomfortable. If you didn't have that or what have you. I mean, 50 to 54 is not the easiest place to win. It's easier than 49, but you still have to have the goods. And they're pretty significant because you have to prove you cannot do light work. You have to prove you either cannot be on your feet for 6 to 8 hours or that you can't lift over 10 pounds. It's hard. I mean, you have to have impairments in the body parts that would limit that and limit it quite a bit. So it takes, I think, making treatment your part-time, full-time job. Meaning it's your priority job, but it's not going to be 40 hours a week. So anyway, I wouldn't say give up because you have a chance and it's getting better and better. And I personally feel like when someone continues to do it and their evidence continues to get more demonstrative, it does also tell a story to the next adjudicator or ALJ that, because a lot of people, when they get denied, they've realized that, yeah, well, even though I wanted to win, I do realize that I have to get a good job because I'm going to go broke. And they find out they have a job and they actually were able to do it. It was something light. It was like cashier, desk job, whatever it was. And they kind of went back because they had no choice because they didn't win. And they found that indeed they actually could do that job. And could it be that they're achy breaky at the end of the day? Sure. I mean, most people work with a little achy breaky at the end of the day. That is not the definition of I shouldn't have to work if I'm a little achy breaky, right? So I feel like sometimes when they see someone persistently, they're not going back to work, or they've gone, even if they've gone and tried, like let's say, Michael, you tried that full-time job and it only lasted 3 months and you're continuing to treat and the records reflect that you're having a difficult time physically with the full-time work, or you go back part-time and even under SGA and the records reflect that it's difficult, but he's able to do part-time under SGA. That will not interfere with the next case. It'll also push out your 1229 DLI and get you a better one, because if you're 53 now, you'll have a few months, I guess, at 55, but I think sometimes they look at it and say, that guy's persistent. He still hasn't gone back to work. And he used to make a pretty penny. Most people are not willing just for the heck of it to not make a pretty penny and live the life of, very fixed income at a younger age. So I think if you have everything else strong, you have, a chance. I don't know what your lawyer says about that, but maybe you've heard, just hang it up till 55. I just don't agree. You have one life. And if you do file again and you do try a full-time job, you can do that. Yes, the adjudicator will have to deny you if the information lines up. You're supposed to tell them too when they're reviewing step one, because that's it's a step one, can't proceed because you're working SGA, but then you appeal, and then by then you may have not been able to continue, and now your appeals, because you appealed, you're going to still be, and you're going to argue that was a failed work attempt. I tried to work. It didn't work. I really wanted it to succeed. The money was great. I needed it so badly. And one thing that people sometimes do is they make that 2-3 months of full time. It's killing them though. And they get really frugal with it. So they try to live everyone, I think, except for the wealthy that are disabled, need to budget down when they stop working. Unless they, like I said, unless they have a wealthy spouse, or they have a ton of money in the bank. And 401k, it gets eaten up so fast if you have to dig into it. If you can stretch that by budgeting down, downsizing, moving to a smaller place, living with family pending, so many things you can do. But I don't think you should give up, Michael, barring any other information that I'm unaware of course. William says it's been, oops, sorry. William says it's been very hot here too. Yeah, it is. It's a warm one. Candy Brown is in the house. Hi, Candy. Did we meet? I don't think so. You don't have a picture, so it'd be hard for me to tell, but I don't remember a Candy with a K. But anyway, welcome, and it's nice to meet you. Candy says, hello. Have ALJ hearing audio okay on 7/30/2026. I am nervous. Yeah, everybody is. Don't worry. I'm even nervous before my hearings, and I've been doing them for, decades. I will be FRA, full retirement age next June, afraid of getting denied. You probably have a nice set of back benefits. I'm assuming that you filed a bit ago, and you might have a couple of years of back benefits. That could be a nice little nest egg for when you collect your retirement. I mean, the nice thing of being close to FRA, Candy, is that you're going to get paid one way or another. So if you don't prevail with disability, it's a letdown. You forego those back benefits, but you're going to be having your full retirement amount, not some discounted early age 62 amount that some people are kind of feel forced to, collect, in less than a year. So hang in there, fingers crossed that you prevail. Do you have an attorney? I hope you have an attorney at the hearing. That hearing's really close. And I hope you submit, if you don't, make sure that you submit all the medical evidence that exists to find out. You can find out the ALJ office will email you a copy of your entire file. You want to look in section F, and this is again if you don't have an attorney, and see what medicals they have, and you'll see what they don't have. And it's up to you to make sure that gets in there. And if it's, say, 7 days, say 8 days in case there's a holiday, I don't think there is. So let's say 7 days. 1 week before your hearing, which is 5 business days. So 1 week before your hearing, 7 days, like week to week. Wednesday to Wednesday, you need to either let the judge know that there's something missing and you're working on getting it, or if it's the kind of, speak to the clerk, because it might be the kind of provider that has an agreement with the SSA and with your 827 that you gave the judge in the beginning when you appealed, they can go and do an automatic retrieval. It's called a HITMR of those records, and they'll be in there within like 24 hours. So, but it's the onus is on you though, your attorney, whatever, to make sure that stuff gets in before the deadline. And if you can't get it in before that 1 week ahead of time, tell the judge in writing, fax it, make sure you got proof that you sent it. That's not a verbal. You want your cover trail, your CYA paperwork. And then he will, at the hearing, if he asks all the evidence in, say, no, as far as I know, and can I have, I would always ask for 30 days. Sometimes they want to give you like 2 weeks. Just ask for 30. I think if you're a claimant without an attorney, they'll probably give it to you. They're going to go lighter, a little more, but then you need to get it in, because it's your responsibility. And if it's not in, who loses? You. Okay. Hey, R. Willie. Good to see you. He says, hey, trying not to choke from all the Canadian smoke. You can see it, huh? I haven't really been following, but my sister lives in Minnesota, and I know there have been times when they've had poor air quality similarly. So, put on that air conditioning. I don't know. Will that help? Yeah. Time for the mask. Get your COVID mask. Just kidding. All right. Yeah, the birdie's in the house. KJ. Taking a nap, I guess, after her little snackies. Hey, out of order's in the house. Hey, out of order. Got hearing in a week. Terrified I'll say something wrong. You will not say something wrong. Listen to the question. Answer what's asked. If the answer that you have to give seems like it's bad against you, and there is an explanation, say, but, judge. Now, you don't say whether you have an attorney who should help lead you with this, but if you don't, just know that if you have to give an answer that seems bad, but it's not once he knows the details, or it's less bad or whatever, then, that could be something like, do you drive? It sounds like a yes or no question, right? And it is a yes or no question. However, if you say yes without any qualifications, and there's no reason to think you can't drive all day like people do, So you might say, well, I do have a driver's license, judge, and I can technically drive, and I do on, not that frequently, but maybe like once a month I drive down to the little store. It's about 2 miles down the road where I get my groceries. So I do that because they don't have delivery. Otherwise I would do delivery, or whatever the case is. Let him know how infrequently it is, or whatever it is you're doing. If it's you do your own chores because you live alone, like you have to clean your house. You make it clear that I can no longer do it the way I would like to do it, the way I used to. I try to cover the basics. My brother comes up sometimes, like once a month, and then he and his wife, and she'll clean the house because I can't get to it as much as it needs to be with the dust. So they help me a lot, blah, blah, blah. Or I do, but it's not as clean as it should be, Judge, in all honesty. I try to pick up after myself, and I try to do one thing this week, like, all right, I'm going to, do this, and, do it in bits and pieces, and it's broken up, and it's never all done. I don't vacuum the living room all in one stint, or certainly not the house, so your responses can be more demonstrative of your realities instead of just saying, yeah, I clean my house, because technically you do, but you know what I mean? But not like when we say, I'm going to go clean my house, Hey, Heather's in the house. Hi, Heather. Natasha. Yeah. I brought her last minute, Heather, because I'm like, People were noting that she wasn't here last week, so let me bring her in. She feels special when she gets to hang out anyway. Carrie's in the house. Hi, Carrie. I don't think we've met. Hi, Stephanie. How things going? I don't think we've met. Since being improved for SSDI, I had seizure that caused accident. Oh my goodness. And airbags going off messed up both my shoulders. So grateful to be on SSDI. Wow. So did you drive? Were you not supposed to drive because of seizures? Did they take your license? I hate to say it, but they probably should. And then when you're on medications that actually work for whatever the set amount of time is, I don't know if it's 6 months or 2 years or something, then you can get, it's like a medical revocation. It's not like a bad girl revocation, but yeah, that could have been so much worse. I really suggest not getting behind the wheel. Be safe there, Carrie. Puffles is in the house. Hi, Puffles. Such a cute name. I have a CE on Friday. Okay, consultative exam, guys. The DDS, which is the medical workup office that we all get sent to after our application is accepted. The DDS wanted x-rays of my hands. Okay, sometimes they order x-rays, and said about a month I was getting hearing aids. And said about a month. I was getting hearing aids Monday. I got x-rays same day. Is that an issue? 72 hours it took me versus 30 days he quoted. Don't really know what you're talking about. I mean, who gave you the hearing aids? Obviously, I'm not the consultative examiner. So you're saying you had a CE, you got x-rays, you were getting hearing aids, you got the hearing aids. I'm not really sure. I don't see an issue. I'm not really sure of the question, though. So, I mean, who said about a month for what? I don't really know what the facts are. I'm sorry. I'm not connecting the dots there. Tristan says Congress needs to take action. Yeah, they do. But the funny thing is, there is a new bill, and I think there's more appetite for it now. But, they're fighting over some other really important things, and, people are holding things over other things' heads, which is unfortunate. And this has been going on, like I said, as long as I've been practicing. There's always been a bill in. That's not like something new. But I do hear that there's more traction right now. So Puffle says he called the 10th. I got x-rays the 13th. No, that's awesome. If you can get there sooner, why not? They try to get you in as fast as possible, but they know that sometimes they have to give more notice. So, I mean, what if you had a really important doctor's appointment, like a specialist appointment that takes 6 months to get? You wouldn't have gone for the x-ray. You'd say, no, you have to reschedule that. Right? I'm glad you can make it. Our Willie says, my brother is a DAC recipient. Okay. It's a PIA. You guys know what PIA is, right? By the way, PIA in the Social Security world, our Willie, is primary insurance amount. It's the amount you're going to get if you get found disabled. It's the amount that someone else is going to get if you get found disabled or retired or whatever. It's the primary amount. They pay you a portion of your primary amount if you collect early retirement versus the full primary amount. They pay you an enhanced amount over the primary amount if you wait till age 70 to collect. So primary insurance amount for us, but I know what you're saying, pain in the, right, blank. Is it okay to say the word ARSE? I say that all the time in lieu of arse. Do you think I'll get shut down? I don't know. I don't think that's a bad word, right? Anyway, it's a PIA for him to manage, especially with an ABLE account. So I'm curious about that. What you don't like about the ABLE account? Because honestly, I don't have anything to do with ABLE accounts. What makes it more of a pain? It means he could have more money, right, than he could have without the ABLE account. He'd have the $2,000 for the ABLE account. So I'm curious. Whatever you want to share on that, R. Willie, that would be much appreciated. Hey, Mike Page is in the house. Good afternoon, Attorney Joy. Good afternoon, Mr. Page. Always good to see you. Mr. Page is one of our, not my winner, just my winner because he's here and he won his case and he shared the information with us. It was great. Not my client. I was not so fortunate. Okay. Puffle says, I got the hearing aids for some loss of hearing. That would make sense. Tinnitus and misophonia. So I'm up against a lot, and he was willing to check from 2012 for old hand x-rays when arthritis first diagnosed. Okay, so just as a side comment, if we get hearing aids and they make us have acceptable hearing, then we no longer have a loss of hearing for work-related purposes, generally speaking. Or if the hearing is something that would be remedied by hearing aids, they kind of expect you to get them. Now, that's kind of funny because hearing aids that work well are expensive, and I know people that can't afford them or can't afford good ones, like, family members and such. They're not cheap, right? Dolphin says, yes, I prevailed January 2026 on a recon. My onset is June of 2024. I will have Medicare soon. Yeah, that's awesome. And you got you had a little bit of back benefits, right? A year or so? DT is in the house. Hi, DT. Do you have any tips for documentation with combined impairments? So we have chronic fatigue syndrome, primary anxiety and depression, past first CDR, August of 5, next diary date, July of 28. Want to be prepared for their AI. Honestly, I think AI can be our friend in these situations. You want to know why? The human element, and I don't mean AI going rogue. I mean using AI tools, because they can miss something that AI can pick out, that might be something they would have missed because they're human. Imagine when it was completely human done. My goodness. So it can pull out things, I think, that are, if it's properly an app that is properly created, So I don't think we should be worrying about AI with regard to this. All right. I know everyone thinks AI is just the big boogeyman with everything. And believe me, I have my concerns about certain areas, but this just isn't one of them. I think it's going to be more of an assistant and help than anything else. So your next diary date is July of 2028. Just keep going to all of your specialists and keep complaining about, and when I say complaining, I don't mean sounding like a baby. I mean advising them on the status of the symptoms. If the fatigue makes you still nap 7 hours during the day, and then you go to bed by 7 or 8 at night, and you don't get up till 9 in the morning, and then you have 4 or 5 waking hours, whatever it is with your chronic fatigue, the effect on your ability to remember things and to keep a schedule and all that. I mean, you already prevailed, so you've got the upper hand. You just don't want to give it up by slacking with treatment. So my guess is you don't. You sound conscientious enough and concerned enough, to realize that it's an ongoing thing when you want to keep collecting any kind of insurance benefit. The proof's got to keep there. It's not like a lottery ticket where it's for life, regardless of what happens. So yeah, when it's combined impairments, you keep going to multiple treatment providers, and yours are the kind that maybe, I don't know, you tell me, there's not really objective. That's the difficulty with these. So I'm really glad you won. I think that puts you in a good place as long as you keep up the same, probably the same level of treatment, because this isn't like a physical thing where you had to get physical therapy after a hip replacement. Obviously that's going to end, right? But yours is more of a chronic, aka chronic fatigue syndrome. So you're going to always want to keep on the protocol of whatever that is, and keep with the follow-ups, even if you think it's just like palliative, like, oh, I'm still taking my vitamins and I'm still taking this and I do have this medication and for a little more energy and blah blah. Keep going periodically. What's reasonable under a CDR, at least, to that specialist. I wouldn't drop it down to just primary care, and when you happen to go for your annual physical, it comes up. I wouldn't do that. That's just me. I'm a little cautious, or a little protective, I should say. Couple says, prescribed 2 hand braces, and doctors have told them over the years and asked for what's the next step to address my hands. They never did anything. Well, you need to push more. You are the only advocate that you can really rely on, particularly if you don't have like a nagging partner in your life who will come to every appointment and be like, say it to them. So it's really up to you. They never did anything. You're the adult in the room. You tell them what you want, and politely but firmly get second opinions, find the doctors that actually, help you more. Now, if they all say the medications or the therapy, there is nothing else, you can't really cure arthritis, so be it. But would surgery help, that kind of thing? Like getting all the things that you could be a candidate for, whether or not, it ends up being the ideal thing. Do they say, well, even with that medication, we would expect maybe a 15% improvement, but that could be an improvement on your pain. So at least you could sleep better or whatever, better quality of life. No, that doesn't mean you can go be a knitter and use your hands, frequently. At best, maybe you could use them occasionally, in a workday. That's up to 2 or 3 hours, a third of the day. But it sounds like you got a referral on the 13th, so that's good. And they added trigger finger to that diagnostic, and the referral is to the orthopedics first. See, they did do something then. They sent you. That's good. That's good. That's a good trajectory. It's showing you're moving. You're not just sitting there waiting for the gift to fall out of the sky. You're being proactive on your case and treating it like it bothers you. And I think that's really important. Not only just for you need the evidence literally, but optically it shows that your condition and your pain bothers you enough that you have not stopped looking for a solution. DT is 41 years old. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. Well, because you guys had split. DT is 41 years old. First time was long form. Okay. He had a CDR a few years ago, long form with adult function report. This one likely be just short CDR. Well, that's good. Or given trust funds, they will try and don another full review. Well, given your age, it's not a matter of the trust funds. The trust funds are always there, and they always need to be protected. The question is, protected from payments improperly going to people who are no longer disabled from all jobs. You, my friend, have to prove that you're
Oh, it's that you are unable to do all 12,000 jobs. The second you improve enough where you could maybe do 5 occupations that exist in substantial numbers, if you think about it, you don't qualify anymore. You can go get a job or move to get the job, whatever you got to do. Most people don't. And unfortunately, our health system and I don't know, I feel like our physical health, I don't care that our lives, we live longer. We live longer like CRAP. You know what I mean? We live longer than nursing homes where we're stuck in a bed. Woo. That's not my idea of a better, healthier society because we live longer. And the numbers of people that become disabled, I think, are just huge. And, you can all point to what we think is the cause of that. I will say I appreciate people finally in the government caring about, toxins in foods and that help them last longer on the shelf and way to cheap them out and stuff like that. So I am grateful for them working on that now. But I think, Rome wasn't built in a day either. And it's really hard, I think, for even the people that do eat well, relatively, and whether that's organic as labeled on the shelves or not, because I heard that's really, truly not going to be definitive because there's so many things they're allowed to have in there. But whatever the case may be, I think it's really hard to be truly toxin-free in your food. And food, by the way, you guys probably know this, they are usually corporately or whatever structured, and they are married to pharma. So for all the diseases that do or do not come from food-related ingredients, they make money out the back end too. So you can't win. Almost, right? Dimple, late to the house. Okay, that's fine, Dimple. I hope you're doing well. Candy has an attorney. Excellent, Candy. I think you're very likely in excellent hands. Arthur Miles says 100% P&T vet, Stephanie. Thank you for your service, Arthur. Truly thankful for your service. You rock. I'd like to thank you for your insightful information. Oh, that's sweet. Along with Mr. Jonathan Ginsberg and Greg Brinkley. I was approved on my initial application for award letter. Awesome. Arthur, that's great. You are approved on initial. That's why when people say they should just blow off those previous steps and just go to a hearing, I'm like, no. But you had your ducks in a row. So whether you did that, whether that was just organically they were in a row, which is probably not typical, but it's certainly a certain percentage or not. That's excellent that you won and won without having to go years. So I'm very happy for you. And thank you again for your service and for your kind words. Kelly B's in the house. Hi, Kelly. I don't know that we met. Did we meet? It's hard, with the names when we don't have a picture. Not that you should have to have a picture. Just saying. Greetings. Thank you for all that you do. You are so welcome. After my case was remanded back to the original ALJ for a hearing in April, I won fully favorably. Awesome. Still waiting on back pay. Anything I can do to speed it up? April, maybe? Yeah, you know what? I would call, this is going to be a pain now because they're going to say it was not in their hands, and it's not. It's at the payment office, most likely. Are you getting your monthlies now, though, Kelly? Are those at least? Field office is kind of like your main go-to. I would politely, but, with a little pressure, say, listen, I got my award back in April, May, June, July, it's been 3 months and I haven't seen my backpack. And I'm not a fleeing felon. I'm not a fugitive. I'm not in prison. So there's no reason to hold it up. And see, and usually what I hear is they don't really know. They're like, oh, I can see it's at the payment center. And I'll be like, can you please send them a little message? I understand. You could say it this way. I understand you can send them a message that will trigger someone to at least look at your message, and it might get a light under someone's butt to click the buttons to make this happen. If it goes longer, like let's say it goes another month after you do that, I would contact my congressperson. I would show them the award. You're going to see the date. You're going to explain it. You have to sign a little release for them. But that's what I would do because I don't think it's really reasonable to go as long as it's going. And I've seen longer, but I think it's definitely time that you would not be a Karen, for lack of a better word. If you, and no offense to all the Karens out there, you know the joke with the name. If you did that, I don't think you're out of line at all. Lord Derek's in the house. Hello, my lord. How often? Oh, do you go live? Every Wednesday, Lord Derek. Same time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. Well, like technically we're not standard right now. We're Eastern Daylight Time, right? So I should just say Eastern. And they're trying to pass. I think this is going to happen. I think this is very bipartisan. I just heard it this morning that it's like possibly really going to happen that they're going to get rid of daylight savings. Either make it always daylight savings or always the au natural what it was. And I think it just sounds like it's going to happen. It'll be interesting. I mean, daylight savings has been I've been a Northeast girl my whole life. It's been something that we've always dealt with. Looked forward to, actually, don't get me wrong. So I don't know which way it's going to go. I think I heard someone say that some expert was saying, if we're going to pick one, why don't we pick the one that is best for our biorhythms, which is the original and not the daylight savings part. I don't know the answer, and I don't know if that person's right or not. That was just one extenuating argument I heard about. Well, if we're going to do it, which is great, and because it's better than yanking people around, they do say that I forget which way direction, if it's both or not in the spring and the fall, the incidence of car accidents in the evening drive home and or in the morning going to work because the person is leaving an hour earlier, sleep deprived by 1 hour, there's more accidents. I think that is a statistical fact. Not that I have the link on hand at the moment, but I think that's a fact. So at least they would get rid of that. It would be a new norm anyway, and it doesn't shift every 6 months. But I am curious about, is it true that the daylight savings man-made adjustment would not be the healthier one? My husband likes the daylight savings because when he comes home once a week from Harrisburg, it's a 2.5 hour drive. And it got to the point, he's in his 50s and he had the Bell's palsy, which completely affects a lot of things to do with your head and your focus and your concentration. It can get tired, almost like a chronic fatigue of the head. Driving home from work 2.5 hours at 4:30 in the afternoon, when you're going to hit some traffic, at least for the first hour, maybe, is really hard. I mean, I can see it being risky. So I usually tell him, just wait till Saturday morning even and just come for one night if you have to, So there is that. And so he won't like that it changes, but we only have 1 more year and we're going to be moving closer to where he works, so it shouldn't be a problem anymore. And then we don't have to miss him a week. Puffle says, is it a problem I got the x-ray myself versus waiting on DDS? You got the x-ray yourself to search and see if an old hospital could find them, or he scheduled me to get new x-rays. Does he know that you got the x-rays? And so did he cancel any efforts on his part to have the SSA pay for them versus you or your insurance? I guess you have insurance, I'm guessing. Maybe not. Maybe just paid out of pocket. I guess x-rays aren't that expensive, but I still think it would be a little bit, I don't know. I don't think they're gonna have a problem with it. I mean, it's a radiologist. He's not like in your pocket. That's a little different than going to your PCP and saying, can you fill out this generic RFC and tell them how disabled I am and I can't walk 3 feet. I think x-rays are a little more objective, so I don't think it's a problem. Couples. I can see no reason why it would be. And you just save the taxpayers. You save the SS fund. Lord Derek says, I'm 6'3" and 580 pounds. My BMI is over 70. I have arthritis. I forget what you said you are in your case. Oh, you didn't. Wait, did you? So do you have a claim, Lord Derek? Let me just keep reading. I also have degenerative back disease. Social Security has me under review. Are you on a CDR? So you've already been found disabled, and now you're under a CDR? Or are you saying that you had your claim and you're under federal quality review because an adjudicator made a decision, you're not sure what that determination is, and it's now under, the random, federal quality review? I'm not sure what you're saying there, but definitely the weight will help your case a lot. Obesity is not itself a listing anymore. I did a video on this a few months back, but it definitely affects your joints and your degenerative back disease. And my guess, you said your knees, that's carrying what, Lord Derek? Another at least 350 pounds more than it should be. Would that be fair to say? That's a handicap right there. So I think that helps your case. Not that I like that you have that problem, at all. I wish it would all go away and then boot you out of the claim. But yeah, make sure that all that stuff is in your claim. It's going to show up in your medical records. That's one good thing about obesity. I know some people don't even mention it, and many of us are obese, right? They don't mention it because they think it's just kind of the norm. Like so many people, it's not like I've got hurt. I'm just, ate too much. And it's, that's the personal self-esteem part about it sometimes that I think makes people not mention it because they think somehow they think, well, I shouldn't be able to get disability because of that. That shouldn't be able to help me. That's not true. And I don't like anyone thinking that way. So they're going to see it even if you didn't put it in because it's going to be, your doctors always measure stuff. I don't know if when you go to the doctor, they probably put you on a special scale because a lot of the scales, go up to like 500. You got the height that can accommodate some of that weight, but that's still so much more, than even that would not be significantly affected. And because you have the knee problem. If you were just obese and had mental problems, I'd be like, well, it's probably not going to do it because it's not affecting your body. But part of your knee problem is probably definitely because of all that, extra burden, extra load that it has to carry, and the back too. I am curious though, are you on federal quality review, Lord Derek, or are you under CDR? Either way, I think you're probably good. Did you say how old you are? I'd be curious about how old you are. I could give you a better opinion too. Arthur says, I started my application May 12th and DDS was done by June 25th. The field office informed me that I was awarded. Oh, that's amazing. See, guys, when the evidence is there. I'm so happy for you, Arthur, that it was quick like that. That's fabulous. And Arthur had representation. Very good. I'm very biased. I think everyone should have representation. Too often those that don't, they do regret it. So where are we at? Bets is in the house. What are we betting on, Bets? Or is that short for Betty? 52. 52 years young, Bets. Agoraphobia. I'm very sorry about that. ADHD. Diagnosed on the spectrum. Anxiety, depression. 17 years of customer service from home. Took FMLA 3 times. Hours reduced during the 17 years. See therapist once a week, last 3.5 years. You're in a case right now, Bets? Bets, you're 52. You're only mentioning physical issues. You're either a Wonder Woman or man. I'm going to assume you're a woman or a man? Bets. Is it short for Betty? Or is it you like to go betting place bets at the horse races? Either way, at 52, and a sedentary job like customer service, or a very physical job like construction, our bodies do start to wear down. I know sedentary job sitting on your butt. I had a butt problem. Seriously, not like a butt problem, but the musculature. I had to do. Well, I'm doing it now, even still, but I did cure it through doing a physical fitness challenge for like 4 months. Well, and I did a little longer than that, but to build it, lots of squats and stuff like that, because those, you got a little bit older than you, they're Bets, but I would like to see you, just as a precaution and a assistance to your case, start following for all the body parts that are not as strong, fast, pain-free, repetitive capability as they were when you were 20. Can you stand for 6 hours a day? Could you stand at your counter without leaning on it? There's a test anyone could do at home. Can you stand there? You could, maybe shuffle your feet. But can you do it for 2 hours, 15-minute break, 2 hours, half-hour break, 2 hours, 15-minute break, 2 hours, done for the day without consequences, like any discomfort or any notable discomfort? Same with sitting in an up and down type of work chair. Can you do the same? Can you take a gallon of milk in each hand, or something that weighs 8-9 pounds, and 15 times an hour? And I'm kind of pulling this out of my butt right now, guys. Just put over here, and then walk over there, put it over here. Take it, walk over there, put it over here. It doesn't have, it could be like at a slow walk pace, but kind of continuously. Can you do that? Or will that be too much? Because then you might have degeneration in your back, your shoulders, your knees, your hips. A lot of times it's the back, but it could be the other things too. Ankles, fingers, gripping, see if it's starting to get limited. And then follow up and get, hey, my back's aching when I stand too long. Doc, can you refer me for MRIs? I'll probably say, we got to get x-rays first. Sometimes the insurances make you do physical therapy first. So do it. Right? A little hard when you have agoraphobia. I know. It depends. And is your agoraphobia the type where you actually literally never leave your house? Or do you only leave it for certain things that you like to leave it for and don't leave it for the rest? So that's going to be important too. Selective agoraphobia is kind of a different animal, I think, when people are kind of evaluating it and stuff. So 17 years working from home, I think, is awesome. And even that, you still have to take FMLA. I'm not sure which medical problem caused that. Your ADHD, honestly, guys, I don't put as much stock into that as some people. I mean, look you were able to do customer service despite the ADHD. So it wasn't severe. It doesn't mean it couldn't get worse, but you have to improve that. So weekly therapy, I would be, are you on medications? That wouldn't be your therapist. That would be a psychiatrist. So maybe you're leaving someone out there in terms of your providers. Obviously, you have a primary care provider, probably. Just things to think about. I would like to see, ideally, like if you were my client, I would be saying, let's see if you're not let's say you're a woman. I'm just guessing here because I see roses. If you have not, then that means you're like physically Wonder Woman, and I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true of 40-year-olds. I definitely don't think it's true of 52. Could there be exceptions? Absolutely. If you happen to be a vigorous physical fitness buff, you might. And even them, they have a lot of, they have issues too. A lot of times people become physical fitness buffs to stave off what would be a growing problem. That's kind of like almost like my goal. I'm hoping maybe just to keep use it or lose it. Our Willie says he's able to use the account pay. All right, we're going back to the ABLE account for a adult person who is a DAC recipient. So just to remind you guys, DAC is disabled adult child. That means the brother was found to be disabled before the age of 22 and had a parent at some point there, then or after, was able to get on DAC benefits because the parent either retired, passed away, or became disabled and started collecting on his own worked for Social Security benefits. So DAC is not a welfare benefit for the disabled adult child. It is an insurance benefit that the parent purchased. Okay. For him, limit just means he has to manage his finances more closely than someone who doesn't. He's able to use account. So he can use it for fun things. He doesn't have to use it for, food or, I'm just wondering, why wouldn't everybody just have one? And why is it a pain? Does he need a pay representative? I don't know what his disabilities are. I don't know if you mentioned that, but I'm just curious. Why would the able be a pain? I mean, he gets this. Can people put gifts in there and stuff like that? Well, they could do that anyway. He's not on SSI. Why does he even need the able account? I'm just curious. Okay. Kelly says, just got first payment. We haven't met. Okay. Thanks, Kelly. I try to remember, and I know I'm going to fail here and there. So, please, nobody take offense. Onset date 2020. I mean, if you come here regularly, I won't forget. Onset date is 2020. Tell others not to give up and start over. Federal judge was very helpful in remand. There you go. Yeah. Awesome. Kelly just got her first payment. You just told me that. Sorry. That's a double. That happens. People do that all the time here. It's just the system. Bet says, sorry for not saying hi. I ran out of characters. Oh, that's okay. No worries. Bet's filed in May 11, 2026. So yeah, pretty recently. Bet's is indeed a female. Bet's knows probably the difference between a man and a woman. No offense to those that, maybe not. Betsy. Okay. My mother's name is Elizabeth. So, and I don't know if that's on her birth certificate that way, because that's from Sweden, but they would call her Elisabeth. And I don't know if there was a silent H or it's just a T on the end. I'm not sure. And then her nickname was some short like Bette or something like that when she was a child. Never after she came here and met my dad and then had us Rugrats. Lord Derek says I'm 46 and on SSDI. They're reviewing my case and trying to kick me off. Reviewing the case doesn't mean they're trying to kick you off SSDI. I promise. I have mental exam on July 20th. Yeah, they're not trying to kick you off. But if there's indicators that you've improved, like if you slacked off on treatments, this is very annoying. Oops. All right. Sorry about that. So try not to take it personally, but make sure you've been doing your treatment, Lord Derek, that you stick, you treat your disorder as the very difficult thing needing treatment that it is. Because the second you don't, it just tells a story. And I'm not saying you've stopped, but you are young. And a lot of times treatment improves a person where they can get back to a bit of a normal life, including working and being self-supportive. So, we have to understand that, the government does not want to be, preventing someone who would otherwise be a fully sustainable adult from being that way by, kind of discouraging them by not checking these things. So I do hope you prevail because, you've indicated that you're still as bad off as you were. So just stick with it and keep your chin up, okay? Keep that treatment going. But again, you also have the physical stuff. So that's big and huge. I hope you've been pursuing, the therapies that would be for the physical. That's hugely important. And that will continue to be important in your 50s, at least up to, well, it's not going to go away. Arthritises don't go away per se, but up through 55, another 10 years, I would be diligent. Big Ta, I almost said something else. Okay, Big Ta. Hello, how do you feel on second claims at the same time your first claim is in the Federal Appeals Court? I think it's excellent. 3 new impairments turning 50 in October. Excellent. Absolutely. The second you get out of that appeals counsel who rejected you, boom, go file a new claim for the new period. From the day after the judge's denial to the present if you are still disabled. Absolutely. That's your plan B. And ideally, you're going to want it at the federal appeals level, and it's all going to be wrapped into one big nice bow, and you have it from way back all the way through. So I think that's good. You'd do good if you did that. Perfect. That's what I would be telling someone to do or recommending. And you're lucky because it sounds like you have a DLI that's prospective and not cut off because it already expired and you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing. That's why those DLIs that I'm always harping about, guys, you do not want that to be in your rear view window. And if it's right ahead of you, it's going to be in your rear view mirror soon unless you do something about it. So consider doing something about it. That's okay. I don't know what that no is about. Okay. I don't even know what scale that would be on, Lord Derek. My anxiety and depression is over 22 points. Yeah. I don't have those memorized. I kind of look at everything afresh all the time because everything in medicine changes, and particularly in mental health. I'm assuming that means it's pretty bad, though. Dimple says, hi, Tim. Very thankful for my representation. Aw, you're very sweet. I have so many ducks that I sometimes forget about them. Keeping up with them is like checking various zip codes. Yeah, and you've got that nagging representative who's always like, so what if that's not your big major problem? Take the time and go treat, right? I know. I'm so proud, but it's one of the negative parts about my job. Dimple says, my physical therapist got me to admit that 2 pounds is too heavy to lift multiple times, and my current limit is 1 pound. Okay, so 2 pounds, or a few, you could probably do it once here and there, but you can't do it repeatedly. Is that the thing? If it's going to be repeated, it's got to be something very, very light, like 1 pound. That doesn't hurt. Hey, what's up, Tosh? Hey. All right. You were napping, so that's why I didn't feed you anymore. Beth says, only leave with my husband or adult daughter, maybe once a week. FMLA was due to stress and concentration issues. I'm on meds and see a psychiatrist. Okay, so you have more than just the, we the one that said just a therapist once a week. Is that you? That's good. Look to the physical. That unless you're like, no, I really am like I'm 20. I'm like Wonder Woman. That's what I would do. Is to carve out more jobs at those, even if they're not major, but there are limitations beyond what you can't do this for 8 hours a day physically because it would be painful or something. It helps us, carve those out. Yeah. Do all of your doctor's appointments, does it come up about how you can't leave the house alone? Do they note that she's here with her husband, she's here with her daughter? And the reason why I ask is because it's hard to prove that. So you want to, it didn't used to be. The agoraphobia happened at some point. I'm wondering, was the agoraphobia why you were? Did you get an accommodation to work from home because of diagnosed agoraphobia 17 years ago? If you have that paperwork, that could be helpful too. Do you go to the store? So are you able to go out and about as long as you have a close bud with you? It's like some people can't leave the house at all. Some people, like you can under certain conditions. Out of order says, oops, thank you for doing this. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. And just as a time check, guys, it's 2:22, so we've been doing this about an hour and 20. AJ says, is that a peach? John, gone. Can't believe I just clicked on that. Sorry, guys. You're silly. Silly. Okay, our Willie says, he was born with CP. Okay, your brother. And as always, did you tell me this before? And has always been in a wheelchair. In his case, he would like to have a larger account that can work on a day-to-day. Until a medical issue this year, he had season Brewers tickets. Shit, I'm sorry. Did he have to give those up? I just don't understand. As a DAC person, he could have $1 million in his own account, not a special account. So what's with the ABLE account? Was that from when he was a child, maybe, with SSI? Look into that. That's not my specialty there, R. Willie, but just, So I'm like, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. But look at that, please. Big Ta says, DLI is 12/31/26. Big Ta. Breathing down the neck. It's breathing down your neck. It sound dramatic, but it is. It's really warm in here. Rosie, I am. Woo! Red face. You're denied at 49 years old, but ALJ gave me a less than sedentary RFC and can't do past relevant work. Did you say you won, Big Top? I'm scrolling up. Okay. Are you saying that ALJ that denied you with a less than sedentary? That's unheard of. I mean, I've never even heard of it. And you appealed it. File again. Gosh darn it. You already did. Good. And you'll be turning 50, but even still, that's crazy. Okay. Lord Derek says, thank you for the information. You're very welcome. Oops. Try not to stress too much about a CDR, Derek. If you're doing what you're doing and you're doing the same thing you've always done, it should be okay. Most people are, if your records still kind of say the same thing they did before, CDRs are by and large, for the people that are doing that, they're the people that sail through them. It's the other people that are the ones that are the small minority that don't pass their CDR. And it's a sad reflection on the fact that we don't heal as well as I'd like to think our expensive medicine would have us heal at. So, man, I'm only complaining about the medical profession. Simple says, my mind says I can do this, and then my body says that my brain has some serious issues. LOL, yes, yeah. Tasha, Simple says hello. Hey, Tasha. Are you jonesing out on starches there, girl? Sean Gon says, I get less time than the bird. You're funny. You always make me laugh. Big Ta says, yes, denied. Will they use or look at first claim direction for second claim? Well, what I would be doing on the second claim is submitting, if what you say is so, I'd be doing it, this might be a little obnoxious, but and maybe your lawyer will do this. The ALJ has found that Big Ta is restricted to a less than sedentary. I mean, I'm just trying to think about, I'd be curious to see your denial because I'd be curious, how did he go from less than sedentary? He found 3 jobs that exist in substantial numbers. You know what I mean? 3 occupations that exist in substantial numbers that a person who cannot sit for 6 hours and stand or walk for up to 2, definition of sedentary, and he was less than sedentary. So what jobs are included in that? Unless did you have a prior job that was SGA in the past relevant work period that was accommodated? Remember, I spoke about this. I probably have a video on it too. If you had an accommodated job that was SGA and is in your past relevant work, the past 5-year period generally, and it was accommodated so that you could do it as a less than sedentary kind of job, then unfortunately, that's now considered the job you had. And you know how there's 2 ways of looking at your past work. As you performed it, with all those accommodations, and as it is generally performed in the economy. So as it's generally performed in the economy, less than sedentary, there's like nothing as generally performed. But if you had an accommodation, and did you describe that in your paperwork? I always say if it was an unofficial thing and it didn't happen all the time and sometimes people just helped you, I don't consider that an accommodation. I consider that just like a cheat, you know? So I wouldn't even mention it. But yeah, I'm wondering if could that have been it, Big Todd, that the job as you did it was designed around your disabilities and it was SGI. Now, when that job is over for 5 years, it will no longer be in your rear view window and you could win because it can't be considered. But your DLI, you're going to have to look at unless you work part-time and keep those credits coming. DLI, it's the gospel. You have to know it. Okay. R. Willie says, I might be using DAC incorrectly. Maybe he's on SSI. He was born with CP and never worked. Okay. Collects off our father's earnings. No, that would be DAC. Well, yes, because did he prove, R. Willie, when he filed for DAC that he was disabled before the age of 22? Was he collecting SSI that whole time from the time he was 22? Because once you're 18, your parents' money and wealth doesn't make a difference. You can get SSI if you're disabled without your work record, right? He was hit by a car and got a settlement for the able. Was that, I'm trying to think like, so like when I wonder if he got that able account when he was maybe on SSI, or it was a concern that he might end up being on SSI. You know what I'm saying? So they were being protective, smartly so, in case a person's going to be on SSI forever. That could be why there's an able account, but I don't know that he has to use it now because unless his DAC is really low, this DAC is under the SSI amount total, the highest SSI. He could have a little combination of two, but he could toss out his SSI if it's only a few bucks, stick with the DAC, unless he needs that Medicaid. Then maybe you can't do that. If the Medicaid is dependent on that, I'd make sure you can get it the other way, which is through the state and just proving you're disabled. Something to think about, though. He might not need to be dealing with that ABLE account. There are people that deal with that. It's like estate planners, Medicaid estate planners and stuff like that. He has the DAC. And as long as it isn't below the DAC, don't get married to, a wealthy person or a non-DAC person or a non-disabled person, I should say. And obviously don't work too much. I'm really sorry about the car accident. But he was born with the CP, and then he also was in a car accident. That's not good luck right there. Big Toss says this was the statement he made in the decision. Claimants' impairments can be reasonably accommodated with a residual functional capacity of less than a full range of Sunday work with non-exertional. I'd have to see the rest of it. If you want to reach out to me, you can redact your name and your social and all that. I would be curious because they can't find you able to do a job that you could do if some future job gave you an accommodation, if that's not what was in your past relevant work. That's not even a legal way it's not legal. So I'm just curious because anyone can do any job if enough accommodation is given. A person in a coma, for goodness sake, can do a job. If all the accommodations are there, someone else is doing the talking, someone else is doing this, someone is doing the writing, someone is doing the watching. Come on. It's, so it's not what can be with an accommodation. Accommodations are never, if the judge has to hang his hat on the fact that, well, with an accommodation, you can do that job. The answer to that is, then that, and every vocational expert will say, that is not a job that exists in a competitive work environment. Competitive work environment under the SSA is considered without accommodation. So I'm just wondering did you have, Big Todd, an accommodated job? Did you describe your job in your work history report? I'm just wondering where the judge, because I can't believe a judge they'll usually make that blatant of a legal error because that's like 101, SSD 101. I knew that my first year, like 27 years ago, that the accommodations, Sybil Chick is in the house. Late to the game, Miss Sybil. Good afternoon, everyone, she says. Nibble says, I think I could be a pillow tester. Yeah, how awesome would that be? Our Willie says, at times he needed to have more than 2K in the bank, so it's been a good problem to have. Yeah, the 2K only applies to SSI, our Willie. So I don't know, maybe he was SSI at the time. And then the parent retired or whatever happened or deceased after he was on SSI and they already had that set up because of the SSI. Or just soon, worth looking into. Jimmy Brown is in the house. I filed in August of 2025. Hi, Jimmy Brown. I love your name. It's so cute. I've had anxiety for over 4 years. Marked anxiety. I've had ER visits due to panic attacks. Examiner picked up claim this month. Okay, it's not that easy to win on just anxiety because everybody's got it. And a lot of people have had ER visits thinking they were having I think I even took, when my kid was small, I take my husband to the ER because he was having feelings in his chest, right? And we're like, yeah, what if it's a heart attack or whatever? Turned out it was anxiety. Heart attack. That's a tough one, unless it's so severe that you almost need to commit yourself type of thing. I don't know how old you are. You look like a young, handsome fella there. If you're over 50, then you have the grids, and then you want to, either way, if you're physically less than an Adonis, if you're not Superman, and Your body parts are not the same as they were when you were 20. Your joints, your knees, your ankles, your back, your strength, your speed, because of the musculoskeletal issues. Just, growing age and or sedentary lifestyle or whatever it might be, you're gonna want to follow them regardless. I think it'll help your case if you're under 50. Doesn't mean it's gonna pull it over the edge though, because that anxiety proof has got to be severe to prove that you can't even do a simple, unstressful job. The kind of third grader could do, who's a very nervous third grader. So it's a high bar. Jimmy Brown, see, yeah, you're like me. You use the pictures from when we were young, right? 60 years old. All right. So you do have physical degeneration. You filed in August 2025. You're still on it? Are you saying that it took 11 months to get an adjudicator? I assume you don't have a lawyer or he would have done something. Other bitched and moaned enough where they would have gotten you one, which that might not work, but gotten you in touch with gotten the congressperson involved. If you don't have a lawyer and you want me to look at it, let me look at it, because I really feel like you would want to be addressing certain joints, musculoskeletal joints, because anxiety is a hard one to win on its own, particularly if you, Jimmy, go to the grocery store to get your groceries, or do you not? I mean, are you able to do those basic negotiations for simple things around your community? Are you able to drive a car? Those things generally point to the fact that you're not completely disabled from anxiety, from work-related tasks. So you're going to have to add to that. And then you can use those grids that we always talk about. I have a playlist on the grids if you don't know what it is. And I'm right behind you age-wise. So if you want me to look at it, if you don't have somebody else, I should put it in here, guys. Well, the website, you can see it there, joydisability.com. And there's two links at the top. You want the one when you're facing it to the left. That is the free evaluation for representation. The other one is for people who don't want don't want to be represented, or we can't help them that way, but they want to have a consult and pick the brain for, working through the case themselves. So either way, did I type that right? Yes. Yeah. You don't want to screw this up, Jimmy, So hopefully you have somebody, but if not, and you need someone to look at it and potentially represent, you let me know. Big Ta says, after careful consideration of the entire record, I find that the claimant has a residual functional capacity to perform sedentary work. So he didn't find you less than sedentary, actually. This is the paragraph that everybody has, and it always starts the same way generally. After careful consideration of the entire record, I find this is where he gives out your residual. He found that you could do sedentary work. And I think, did you say, are you the one that's 46? Except you need a handheld assistive device. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't find less than sedentary. He found sedentary with carve outs, like arthritis of the hands or, whatever else there is. But exertionally, he put you at sedentary. Assistive device for ambulation. Sometimes it's interesting when they talk about an assistive device for ambulation. That's usually a cane. And they like to say ambulation and avoid, if they can, saying anything about needing it for standing balance. If you need it for standing balance, then it's less jobs you can be doing, because you cannot be using two hands doing desk work, bench work, they call it, because one hand would have to be here holding on when you're standing. So that's something to think about, guys. If you ever have to get a cane, or you should get a cane and whatever, and try standing. If sometimes you'll have a cane just because walking hurts. Okay, so that's for ambulation. But sometimes, a lot of the time, it's for both. They're like, no, if I stand, I get a little imbalanced. Maybe you got a weak side, something's a little weaker, or just a little bit of imbalance. That you want to make that dead on clear with your doctor repeatedly. When I stand for more than a few minutes, I get off balance. You want that in the record, because then that would defeat all those jobs that are, because they have, right here is basically saying you could stand without a cane. That means you can use 2 hands. You just need the cane when you walk around that office or whatever. Sit, stand every half hour on task. Okay, so guys, the sit stand every half hour, that's called the sit stand option. And it is a way that they can defeat when you say, I can only, for a total of like 3 or 4 hours, can I stand or walk? I can't just be on my feet that much. But if you could sit for at least 3 or 4 hours, now they covered it, because you do half and half. You get a job that lets you do both, and they exist. Occasional ramps and stairs, no ladders, ropes, or scaffolds. Occasional balance, stoop, kneel, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, all the things that deny you under sedentary. I got it, Big Top. Crawling, occasional pushing, pulling, and foot controls. No exposure to hazards. Occasional exposure to atmospherics, whatever that means. Claimant can handle simple instruction and repetitive tasks in 2-hour segments. Okay, so he has you at unskilled, sedentary. You got to get that sedentary kind of, you have to either age up, or, you know what I mean? Jimmy Brown says, I have representation. Good. So you're in good hands. And you don't see any physical doctors? Well, stranger things have happened. I'm sure your representative knows what they're doing. PCP, what is that for? You see him once a month, or her. Why are you seeing a PCP? That's usually for when you have the flu or when you have an initial problem and they refer you to specialists like psychiatrists or whatever. Big Todd, what this was the second statement made in the decision. So the other one is just, what was he? Dicta. It's just commenting on, he shouldn't have put it in there because it makes it almost, why would he even put that in there if he finds that you could do sedentary, you know? Whether someone, unless you had an accommodated job, but I've asked that a few times here and you haven't responded back. Well, I did have an accommodated job. So it allowed me to work even though I couldn't do a full day sit down job. It was something I couldn't manage to do, sit down for 6 to 8 hours. My Fair Heart. Hello, Stephanie. I don't think we've met, My Fair Heart. Nice to meet you. How does SSA evaluate a small handmade Etsy business during step 3 of an SSD application? Thank you. Well, if you're claiming to have hand problems like arthritis, that's not going to help if you're doing handmade small things, because that would imply that you could maybe do small parts assembly and jobs like that. It's like a little bit of a factory type of thing, but it's not heavy lifting. It's very light. So it really depends on all your other stuff and what you're claiming. That's self-employment. So you have to look at the self-employment rules too, in terms of how many hours a week are you actually doing both the managing of the Etsy business, navigating the computer, all that. How many hours are you putting into small handmade creations, which I think is awesome that you do it, but it can easily be not it can be a nothing burger. But again, if you had hand problems, that would be a problem. Or let's say you can't sit for very long because of a bad back. If your handmade Etsy things can be done from like knitting in a recliner or, so it really depends. See how wide open it is? I mean, if you're calling it a business, have you declared taxes and all that? Or has it only been a hobby? It's a kind of a fine line, and you have to almost really kind of look at it and see, what it can be defined as and what it must otherwise be defined as. Yeah, that will tell you. Because SGA is not, because it's self-employed, SGA is not going to just be on, well, I'm making less than $16.90 a month. They're going to look at the hours and look at and I'll say normally it's not a problem. The work itself, if it's minimal, it's crafting. But again, if you've claimed to have hand problems, arthritis, and that's a major part of your case, then that would be a problem. Or if you're putting in half time, let's say you're working 80 hours a week, a month. Now we're getting up there. You got to be careful because that's going to be automatically considered probably trial work period month too. Not necessarily SGA, but Big Top, 49 years old, turning 50 in October. Yeah, 50 is, sedentary. So if he found you sedentary, the chance of them not finding you sedentary is, unless you stop treating for something and there's no proof that you're still limited to that, I think you're probably in decent shape if you keep the evidence coming the way it needs to come. So, and I think you said your DLI is not till later, so you're good. And then you're the one doing looking for a federal remand, right? So then you could maybe win it before, but at least if you get that one in, you've got you're protected that you're going to probably win if you keep doing what you're doing in terms of evidence-wise. Our Willie says AI should be rebranded to assisted intelligence. You're probably right. Good idea. You're so smart. Computers are fast, accurate, and dumb. People are slow, sloopy, and intelligent. I know, right? And it always takes people behind it. It really does. I mean, I think it's exciting. I just think I do believe that we have to be the masters of it for sure, not some other entity or country. And I think, I'm not big on regulation overall, except for really important things like this. Then you have to. It's like airplanes. You can't just have everybody flying airplanes all over. They have to be highly regulated. I would say AI is the same, but we cannot not have it, or else we will be someone else's biatch in a few years, for sure. Jimmy Brown says, the PCP treated me for 3 years trying to find the right medication. So hard, right? Now the psychiatrist is treating me. I can't believe the PCP held on to you for 3 years and didn't refer you because he's not a mental health professional. Sorry. I just think that was irresponsible of the PCP. Just based on what you said, I could be wrong based on other facts. Now the psychiatrist is treating me once a month. We're trying to find medication that will work for me. Did you say you also have a weekly therapist? I hope that's what you said, Jimmy Brown, or was that somebody else? Talk to your lawyer. Maybe he would recommend that you also get weekly therapy, talk therapy for coping learns, and for other things that can develop. Sometimes we're not able to work anymore. I mean, it. The depression kind of sets in, and adjustment disorder. It's hard to adjust to not being able to work anymore and, not feeling like the very self-sustaining, independent person financially and, work-wise that you once were. So, I don't know. Those are the things that I would be looking at. And I'm sure your lawyer is, so he'll probably say something. But that's just generally speaking what I would be looking at. Jimmy Brown, I can't do long drives. Go into stores unless I'm in and out quickly. Okay, so you're allowed to see that's order my food to be delivered. I can go out to eat or anywhere in public. All right, so the anxiety is not so overwhelming that you can't do the basics. I think you meant to say I cannot go out to eat or anywhere in public. Okay. I still think you want that physical stuff. Has that not been mentioned to you yet? Big Ta. I haven't worked since 7/1/2020. Big Ta. You probably have an expired DLI, do you not? You earned all through 7, assuming you were a steady worker until July of 2020. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Your DLI might be 12 of 2025. I'm not sure if you mentioned that up above. So that new, were you the one about the new filing? It's not going to work out so well. If the judge just denied you and your DLI is not after he denied you, the date of his letter, you don't have any more. You have to win that remand. Have to. You got no choice. Big Tal, thank you for your excellent commentary. You're welcome. Fingers crossed for you. Virginia Gomez is in the house. Hi, Virginia. Late to the game here, Virginia. Good afternoon. Question. Does a lawyer look through medical evidence before taking a case? We don't. That would be waiting months to decide if you're taking a case, and that wouldn't be fair to anybody, right? When you know what you're doing, you know the questions to ask. I've just been doing it a really long time. Yeah, you know the questions to ask. And there are times when the answers you get are not good, but you can tell from the other answers that if this person would do XYZ, those other answers would now have good responses. Primarily, I'm talking about when they've been neglecting the kind of treatment that would be necessary for a good case, a strong case. So on the different things that they didn't think were important, different impairments that were not the big burger in their, in their problem. And I totally get why they don't do it, but they don't know. And then I'm there to tell them, you're going to want to do this, this, and this because of the way the law is. But no, we do not look at medical evidence before. It's a nice, friendly, fun conversation with me here. I'm the only one that does that. And the right questions and enough talking. And you got a very, very accurate gauge on the prognosis of the case. What it could be with proper treatment, or in this case, proper legal workup. And then the question always is, before you want to hop on, is, all right, look, if we tell you to do certain medical suggested recommendations, and it's not going to be like you have to go have surgery or anything like that. It's about following up and doing certain things that are medically in that whole sphere. Will you, be willing to pursue that and suggest it and talk to your doctor about it? Because it's a doctor-patient thing. However, you got a legal thing now, and that's what you're hiring me for. So I don't want to be here doing all the work and paying for all the work to be done behind the scenes if you're not doing the other part that only the patient can do. We can't treat for you. We can't go to the providers for you. We can't get the MRIs for you. We can't do any of that stuff. So if the person says, yes, I'll do it. Well, then game on. And then we become partners and a big old team, and we move forward. If they decide that they can't, they're just not willing to do that, then sometimes we withdraw. And that's just the way the ball bounces with that. It's just definitely up to them. And, I did this year, and it really kind of broke my heart. I don't know that I've ever done it. At this point, I withdrew from somebody after I appealed them for hearing to make sure their hearing rights were protected. But for the entire case, and it was from inception, the person did not pursue basic medical follow-up that I explained over and over and over again. And it was very frustrating. And I get it. The person is super nice, super sweet, but sometimes we can't get out of our own way. And I'm not going to be dragged down with it. There's just a point when you say, okay, well, I got to go. I'm not helping in any way. I'm not able to help in any way. So once I realized that I'm useless, there's no point. Now the person would hopefully still continue their claim if they felt they were going to start hopping up to speed after I was gone, and they could still win. And if I'm still, now granted, I could file a fee petition and get paid for what I did, but probably wouldn't do that in this case, only because the person's pretty indigent. But why keep swimming upstream with someone who's paddling the other way, right? So, and not treating is paddling the other way. That's not just being passive. That's while we're climbing mountains and you're pulling us the opposite way, basically. So because time is running out, and that person also had the issue of a DLI that was maybe going to be over in June or September. So this I pulled out in like April, I'm thinking, and it's not something that I do lightly. And I even the at fault kind of things where I pulled out, there's probably been one handful of people in 21 years I've done that. I'm kind of like a dog with a bone. I stick with people even after they lose. Like when I know they have like some of my young people, I know it's gonna take a few rounds. I just stick with them. You end up making probably less than minimum wage, if you're gonna do it by the hour. But the young people who are disabled, they haven't even had the opportunities we've had to build up a Social Security record and just enjoy the life we've enjoyed not being disabled. So it's something that I have to take out on a limited basis, obviously, because otherwise we would have to close our doors. But it's really, really important. That's kind of in that sphere of that 1 to 5% guys at the 12 o'clock p.m. daily videos support. That's why I would say, please, guys, watch the 12 p.m.s. Put it on. Maybe through osmosis, you'll learn something. If for no other reason, because you care about, the 1%, 5%ers, and some of them are young people. I'd say a lot of them are young people. And then sometimes it's bizarre other things like very remote DLI of someone who I know has been disabled that long. Someone who was injured in 911, for instance. Yeah. And then didn't treat for 20 years because the psychological effects. Just talk about agoraphobia, right? It wasn't quite agoraphobia, but that was the most bizarre case. Took it to hearing in a way that I didn't even imagine. It wasn't even part of all the work we did. The judge was able to find a different way because she said, I don't think I could do it that way, the way you worked so hard for me, but I can do it this way. So I've said this before, part of the job, and particularly when you write your brief and stuff, and I always do a brief, they're not required at all, but we do them. And they're probably the single most labor intensive stuff we do is to get the judge to understand why the judge would want to. We're showing all the medical and why you would want this to be someone you could find. Like, why not add that human factor? And I think for most people, someone who sacrificed a bit at 911 might be someone like that. So anyway, one of the 1%, 5%ers, and it was such a beautiful thing. I was kind of honored to do it. I know they weren't going to be able to find anybody else because the 1%, 5% lawyers aren't looking for those cases. I'm not either, but they exist. And sometimes you just got to step up and devote the time. And I ended up making a fee on it. So it wasn't like, I expected not to. So it worked well all the way around. And I was particularly happy for the person. And I was pretty in touch with the family, like the spouse. It takes such a load off someone who has been unable to work largely for psychiatric reasons when they have children. It's bad enough when you have a spouse. In this case, the other spouse could work, but when you have children and you're not all there, it's very that just compounds the emotional damage. So being able to, granted, it's far in the future and you can't erase the past, including the children growing up and stuff, but at least there was, a little tiny bit of a fix, a little bit of a tiny repair. But anyway, I babble, but that's kind of why we do what we do here, the way we do it. Virginia says, thank you for all your help, Chica. May God bless you every day, in every way. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and you too, everybody. God bless. CG says, bilateral feet problems and physical therapy turning 50 in December. My guess, CG, is you probably have more problems than just your feet physically. Would that be true? By the way, it's 2:59, guys. We're on the 2-hour mark. So we will close up soon as the questions are done. I'm going to try to finish these. Don't forget about your other problems, even though these are the ones that really screw you up, the feet. CJ, do not forgo. You're almost 50. You're not physically like an Adonis when you were 20, right? So, or Wonder Woman, or I don't know what your gender is, but hop on those things now. Think about them. See how long you can sit. See how long you can stand. Do those little self-tests and then get referrals to work those up diagnostically. The back is a big one. Hips are big in sitting. Even knees can be big in sitting. I know when someone has bad knees, just bending them for a sit position can hurt. I mean, those can be very specific to the person. Sometimes it's bending them, sometimes it's straightening them. I thank God every day I don't have knee problems, truly. My husband has a bad knee. He's had surgery more than once. And when it would go bad, you couldn't even lie still and it not hurt. It was the most horrible thing. And I think he was only like in his late 40s at that time. Okay. CJ says, also, denied once, did not appeal, nothing else till after denial, past 60 days. Okay, so you let that case go, got the feet diagnosis, and started officially treating. Do more than the feet. How old did you say you were, CG? You're 49, turning 50. Yeah. Because guess what? Sedentary jobs, you don't have to be on your feet much. You're gonna have a tough time. Even if you'd have to, number one, you have to prove that you can only do a sedentary job. Let's say, well, your feet could feasibly do that, but I'm telling you, they're gonna be hesitant. They're gonna probably be like, you could do one of those sit stand option jobs. So I would work on those. I cannot believe I haven't met any 50-year-olds that are not gym rats. And like I said, even gym rats have their problems. Sometimes it's caused by overusing the joints. So you probably are not in the same internally physical shape as you were when you were 20, CG. So those are the things you want to find out. How much degeneration has happened now that I'm 50? You got a lawyer now. Good. Never hurts. It usually helps. I promise. Well, I shouldn't promise, but that's how I feel. Usually, I think it helps. I have a feeling, and they don't give us this information. I don't know why. The concealing is not good. I want to know how many people, if you took all the people and split them between the represented and the unrepresented, how many people of the denieds are represented versus not represented at each level? That's what I would like to know. I also wanted to know, and I've been trying to see if I could find it anywhere, but I couldn't. How, we have the percentages of who's awarded on initial recon kind of know the percentages, but it's overall. I want to know how many of the under 50s, how many of the 50 to 54s are denied or awarded on initial recon ALJ, and then the over 55s. And even the over 60s. And then it'd be ideal if we could bring it down to the 40s, 30s, and everything else too. But I'll take it, if it's just those three. I've looked high and low for it. I'm going to ask a few other people. Maybe I'll ask Jonathan. I'm sure he doesn't know it. He probably would have shared it. But I would like to know, because I think obviously the age makes a huge difference. But I would also like to know of the represented and the unrepresented. What are the stats? I mean, maybe they don't want to say it because they don't want, it doesn't look good for, I guess, a government administration of any kind, that it requires the people to get the best chance to have representation. But that's true. I mean, it's common sense, and it's true in anything we do. I mean, you don't need a lawyer to get a divorce, but you're probably going to, well, I should take this back. Maybe not. If you're trying to just get a divorce, that's pretty easy. But if you're trying to win something that you think you should have, that's hard to do without a lawyer. And you have to learn all the steps of filing the motions and da-da-da-da-da-da. So that would be one thing. I'm trying to think what else. There's just so many things that, like when my husband's elders, most of them passed, and they're out of state and far away. And I just hired lawyers in both the states to handle it. And I'm a lawyer, and I used to do a little bit of estate work, but I mean, that was in another lifetime, because it is hard. You'd have to subscribe to the right legal things for that particular field in that particular state. You know what I mean? Like, it just, people don't have, and particularly disabled people don't usually have the mental wherewithal, because they're dealing so much as it is, even if they don't have a mental impairment. So it's crazy. LaRoche is in the house. Good afternoon, Miss Stephanie. Thank you, Amiga. Have a blessed day. You as well, my dear. CG says merchandising job, lots of walking. I'm sure that's on your feet a lot. Yeah, but you can't just disprove your one job, CG. You have to disprove 12,000 other jobs. Ballpark 12,000, including the ones that don't require any walking. How do you prove that? But if that was your job, the only past relevant job you had, CG, that one you might be able to at least prove that prong, which would apply once you're 50. You're welcome, CG. CG says, thanks for all the videos and kind answers. You are so welcome. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it, guys. And everyone here, God bless. This is LaRoche speaking. I'm glad we went over agoraphobia, 5 years with symptoms. Oh, yeah. It comes in so many different packages too, right, LaRoche? I mean, I've known people who literally, there's so many I'm not even going to say, sure, if I had someone who never, ever, ever left their house. I had one that the only time he left his house was to drive the spouse to work, and came right back in the house. So it is true that sometimes there are exceptions when the person needs to do something. And that's what I think makes it optically difficult. However, it's a mental disorder, so it can act wonky. There were so many other things that screamed. It was more than just agoraphobia, by the way. There was severe paranoia. I would say almost like delusions. So it was getting kind of hairy. Which says, I never get out of my apartment. Do you literally never get out, so you don't go to the doctor? That makes for a tough case. Or do you mean I don't get out of my apartment to socialize it? Do you go to the Five and Dime? Is that even a word anymore? Do you go to the grocery store or the convenience store, to the doctors? That's getting out of the house. There are people who are very socially reclusive, and it's not the same thing. It might have a little tinge of it though, but I think they call it a social phobia, or see different words. But the Rocha says, anymore, I was an outgoing person to treat my anxiety. Kathy Clayton's in the house. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Stephanie. All right, guys, we're at the 2 hours and 8 minute mark, so we're a little over time here. There's not like a slow question, so I think it's a good time to cut out. Tasha, what do you say? Watch, if I do this, she's gonna go, what are you doing? Sorry, I was just saying hi. Hi. Yeah, she'll wake up, it's like she has PTSD. She did a weird thing to a friend of ours, my daughter's significant. Well, Lulu's in the house. I gotta take this one. Hold on a second, guys. Well, Lulu, how are you, my dear? Question, does DLI extend automatically when adequate adequate income tax forms and SE tax payments are correctly done with the IRS filing? Yes. I'm going to say yes as a general thing. Let me just read the rest. Cannot view SS statement or work credits on SSI site during appeal stage. This is not true. You can get into that and get your earnings statement. You cannot get your estimated benefit. So you can get in there, tool around. You can get your Social Security annual earnings statement. Okay? That's a fact. So make sure you get it. And yeah, if you are working, and this is what we talk about with the DLIs, when they're going to be expiring, everyone's is going to expire if they stop working. All of us. So if you're in danger of that and you're trying to prove a case, and you have a case that's a little tougher than other ones, which is a lot of you, if you can somehow do a job that does not show you can do any other job full time, and fully pay the taxes and all the money. Don't start trying to write off all your mileage and stuff. Get some work credits in there. It could be self-employment, weird work, strange gigger stuff. I've done so many gigger stuff when I was younger. They used to call me Gypsy, my friends. And I was a lawyer. It was when I was a lawyer and I left the law firm. I wasn't married yet. And I'm like, I'm going to do it my way. I told like 30 years ago, but, maybe almost 30 years ago. Keith Clark. Hi, Keith. Just found your channel. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Definitely come back next week because we are closing it up because it's been a couple hours now, but it's very nice to meet you, Keith. So please do feel free. And just a reminder, there's 12 o'clock, the 12 o'clock daily shares. Sometimes they're ad hoc, sometimes they are pieces of a Q&A, and then we go into more details about that with another video attached to expand on it a little bit more than we could do here. But those are the ones that support the 1%, 5%ers, guys. So totally appreciate if you just turn that stuff on. They come on at 12. Doesn't mean you have to watch them at 12, but there's a ton. It's like 5 years worth. 1,000. And they're all pretty short too. I do televisits, LaRocha says, with my doctors, and once a year I get out. That's pretty significant. I get out to get in-person visits. Yeah, for blood work, right? Don't they want your blood work and stuff, Ms. Lily? I would think so. Yeah, Lalulu, you can fix that DLI if that's breathing on you. If you sounds like you've been doing it maybe. Yeah, that's, and you have very robust treatment for that. And you talked about how you can't get out at every visit, because that's a big, huge thing. If I was suddenly afraid to leave my four walls, and if you need to get those in-person visits, LaRocha, some people need to have extra anxiety medication to get out, the kind that you really couldn't even drive. If that's what happens to you, and your doctor is like, all right, you're going to take this extra thing, obviously you shouldn't be driving, but it sounds like you're not driving anyway. I would make sure that that's very clear in the records. When she goes out once a year for her thing, she has to have this added to it, or else she might not make it out of the house. She might cancel. That wouldn't be that unusual. So just something to think about. All right, guys. All right, I hope to see you next. Yeah, I was going to go to Harrisburg on Wednesday after my physical therapy, but then I said, no, I can't. That means I'll be racing out of the car into the house to turn on the computer. And it means I wouldn't have been able to shower after my physical therapy, and I'd be totally skankarama. So I'm not going to go till Thursday. So then my husband, I go, I'm going to come on Thursday instead of Wednesday because, it's just too much. And, I'm a bit of a sweat hog in here, but at least I'm bathed, right? All right, guys. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Great questions. If you ever have a question middle of the week, you could always post it under any video. I get to all the comments. I'm just a little slow. It might take a week, and I will respond. So, and if it's video worthy, I'll do a video. I get ad hoc. And yeah, definitely please come back again and ask your questions. I really enjoy my Wednesdays. They are my favorite work day of the week. And if you could pop on the pre-recorders that come out every day, there's a slew of them. That would be appreciated also, because it is the only way we take on the extra 1%, 5%ers. Otherwise, we couldn't afford to do it. So, because there's other fully or largely pro bono. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. God bless. And what's today, Wednesday? Yeah, I'll see you soon.